So these are sort of books on the history of mycology and the history of mycologists. So here's something that comes up in conversations about books that most people don't know about, but trust me, they would want to know. People that really geek out on mushrooms and other fungi, these are books that they would really love to have and read. They don't even know that they want these books. So these are sort of books on the history of mycology and the history of mycologists. So again, a lot of pot hunters or whatever might not be interested, but a lot of people with this really serious upsurge in popularity of mycology right now, these books that I'm about to lay on you are my absolute favorite books. I've read all of them several times. They're super cool, and I'll tell you why. So if you want to learn about the history of mycology and mycologists, here's a book nobody's ever heard of, but you can get it. There's lots of used copies around, and it's by this very famous mycologist, Ainsworth. And he's most famous for doing the dictionary of the fungi, which is on like edition 9 or something. This sort of obscure book, Introduction to the History of Mycology. This is a must-have if you're really into mycology and want to learn about mycologists and how they got started. Everybody's in here. It's just such a wonderful book. I've read it many, many times. A lot of old-timey drawings in here too, and figures. So without giving too much away, this is for sure a book to get. You'll have to find a used copy because this came out a long time ago. When did this come out? 1976, so pretty cool. Along those lines, History of Mycology and History of Mycologists. A more modern book is one that came out quite a few years ago by Nicholas Money. Nick's written numerous books. He's a professor at the University of Miami at Oxford, Ohio. This book, the Mr. Bloomfield's Orchard, also maybe my absolute favorite mycological book ever. It's about the history of mycologists, including A.H.R. Buller, which is clearly Nick Money's hero. And Buller is famous for Buller's Drop, which he explained the physical mechanisms of how ballistospory works in mushrooms, which is really bizarre. He figured it out with his knowledge of physics and physiology before he could even see it with a microscope. Then Nick Money, many decades later, proved it with ultra high-speed cameras that could shoot millions of frames per second. Really sophisticated technology. So this book's super cool. Mr. Bloomfield's Orchard, about the history of mycologists, and then he published a book a few years more recently, The Triumph of the Fungi, and this is sort of the history of mycology and fungi, and much of it has to do with people learning mycology to stop a number of pandemics and diseases of plants that were economically important. So these two books by Nick Money, absolute must-haves. He's written several others that have other mycological topics, but these are still my favorite two by him. And then a much older book that I got a hold of when I was a student. I was a plant pathology student working on my PhD. And if you're into plant pathology, you would know about this book. If you came at mycology from another angle, you probably never heard of it, but you need to read this. This is also about the history of mycology and the advent of mycology, mostly to solve plant pathological problems, which were mostly fungal based. So this one came out a long time ago by E.C. Large, Advance of the Fungi. This is from, this copy came out in 2003, but this is a reprint, but it's a really super old book. Hey, if you like this information, follow, like, and subscribe, or leave a comment.